Oh, welcome to the Bible in 1 year. This is Ochudo Ayi. If you're joining me for the first time, this podcast is about the Bible, reading the Bible through from cover to cover this entire year. I just chose to share my personal studies with an audience because I thought that it was so transformational for me. And I thought that if I did, I'd encourage somebody, a curious mind out there, a discouraged mind out there to go read it for themselves. Now, this podcast is not about teaching as such or preaching. It's just about let's study the Bible together, right? And let's just see what it actually says and then draw your conclusions from there. It's okay to have an opinion or an understanding and interpretation that is different from mine, and that's fine because that's the whole essence. God can speak to us in many ways, and even though some ways may sound erroneous and totally far from what the general populace believe, the fact that you are even reading it yourself is fantastic because just ask Him to speak to you, okay? People have asked me on this podcast whether I'm a pastor. No, I'm not. I actually have a regular career doing regular people stuff. This is just me sharing my faith with an audience. Okay, every single day when we read the Bible, we follow this Bible guide, and in it we read an Old Testament, New Testament, a Psalm, and a Proverbs. Today is day 197, and every day I have about six versions of the Bible, and I use any one that I feel interprets the readings to me much more easily. Is that correct English? Anyway, you get the point. Okay, so that interprets to me. So let's quickly get to it. Okay, this is day 197. We have 168 days to go. And in this scripture, the issue of the ark comes up again. Now, David really does have a heart for God because today we're reading First Chronicles chapters 22 and 23. We'll be reading Romans chapters 3, most all of chapters 3, except for the first 8 verses, and then Proverbs 19, 13 to 14. So let me quickly scroll through Proverbs. Let's get that out of the way. It's just two verses of scripture in Proverbs, and I don't explain or give any insight there. Proverbs 19, 13 and 14. So 13 and 14. A foolish son is the ruin of his father, and the contentions of a wife are a continual dripping. Houses and riches are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is really from the Lord. Okay, all right, that's it for Proverbs today. We are done with the book of Psalms, and that's why we're not reading Psalms anymore. Okay, First Chronicles 22. David began to think again that the ark deserved a better accommodation from God. So he says that they're all living in fancy houses. The ark is still under a tent, you know. So David saw that the ark deserved better. So he got foreigners to hewn stones, rocks, and began to build the house of the Lord. Okay, if you recall, yesterday David had to stop. David misbehaved, so God gave him a condition, and he chose a plague for 3 days. And so, if you recall, he had to go to Arona's threshing floor to sacrifice, where he could stop the plague after about 70,000 people had passed. So David saw that the place was now the Lord's house. He considered that place the Lord's house, and he got foreigners to hewn stones, rock, and begin to build the Lord's house around there. He prepared iron. Maybe he bought that place and decided that's where the ark of God should be. I've never seen that before, but that's what comes to my mind when I'm reading this. He prepared iron for nails, for doors, for gates, for joints, bronze and cedar trees. Seven Tyre and Sidonians, who were known for great timber, were the suppliers and brought cedar trees and timber to him. I remember David is written here that David thought to himself, Solomon has to build this house and it must be magnificent. So David had attempted, said, look, he asked Nathan, I want to build a house for God. Nathan is like, okay. Then God says, no, there's a reason why you can't build a house. You have too much blood on your hands. You've gone to war several times. So I really love that you're thinking this and you've really moved my heart. However, not you, but your son will build the house temple of the Lord. So Solomon is young and I have to help him. So David is thinking to himself that Solomon is young and I need to help make sure he has no reason to fail at building this ark, and it must be magnificent, like the finest thing I've seen anywhere around. So I have to prepare for it before I die. So he charges Solomon, telling him that God didn't permit him, David, because of war and bloodshed in God's sight. However, God had said, I will leave a peaceful son with you and I'll give him peace so that he can focus on the house. That's not how it's written, but that's what I got from that scripture. I'll give him peace and rest, a quiet regime, so that he can build the ark, the house of the Lord. He'll be my son, and I'll establish him forever. And now, Solomon, may God be with you. May you prosper. May he give you understanding, wisdom. That's so beautiful. And the king praying for the future king, calling him to his chambers and not talking to him, and then praying for his son. How many of us actually think to pray for our children? I just got my son an internship at a very prominent car. It's a group of lots and lots of business they do there. And before I send him out, I'm going to practice this thing because I've just seen it here. I will pray for my son and speak prosperity over him, and that he will prosper and wisdom and all of that stuff. Anyway, so he says, Solomon, you will prosper. God will give you understanding, wisdom. Keep God's laws throughout all the laws that God gave through Moses. Keep them. Be strong and courageous. Do not be scared, and do not be discouraged or dismayed. It will come, but don't be. I've taken time to prepare all that you need. Oh, the love of a good father and a mother. Yes, I've taken time to prepare all that you need: gold, silver, bronze, timber, stone, workmen, woodsmen, stone cutters, iron beyond measure. Like, I have given what you need, and I've given way more than what you need. Hi, Chisom. It's been a while. Good to see you. So, I've given beyond what you need. Arise and start working. Solomon hadn't even really become king, and David had already told him, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, stand up. Stand up and start working. I've charged you. I don't want to hear him. Just get to work. You know what that tells me? Don't leave your children idle. Quickly give them projects to do. Oh God, there's so much to take from this. So you go read it yourself and draw your conclusions. Anyway, so he commands the leaders. Of course, he's still king and he has people who follow him. Hello, Brooke. How are you doing? He commands the leaders to help him, noting that God has given them rest on every side. So I think at this time, hi, Brooke. Good to see you. So I think at this time, wars have toned down. King David had established himself as a leader in the territory, and people were no longer picking fights with him. Hi, Mara. Hi, Joy's Kitchen. Good to see you. So people had stopped picking fights with David, and so there was rest on every side. So that's probably why David could think, yeah, I need now. Let's build the house and let's get Solomon busy. So all these idle men, before you go around causing trouble, we need to build the temple. I've asked Solomon to do that. So you guys need to help him. So he says he gets everyone. He tells them, look, we're no longer fighting, so set your heart and soul, seek the Lord, arise and let us build the ark of the covenant. The hi birdie. I see a lot of people today. So he commanded the leaders to help him, noting that God had given them rest on every side. So set your heart, your soul, and seek the Lord. Arise and bring the ark of the covenant and the holy articles into the house that is to be built. And so David was old at this point, just as old as his own. He was older than many of the people who were with him at that point, but he was old, and he made Solomon king. He brought Israel's leadership, the priests, the Levites, 38,000 Levites that were 30 years and above, 24th century worshippers, 6,000 officials and judges. So there was a lot of order. What this told me was there's a lot of organization and order. Thank you. What time is it there, Queener? It's 8. It's about 9 minutes past 8. Thank you so much, Birdie. Thank you. So David was old and made Solomon king and ensured that everyone supported him. So I was listing the organization, all the management and all the teams that would help Solomon. So 6,000 officials and judges, 4,000 security guards, 4,000 orchestra. Like, music was such a big deal. And you know, David, oh my goodness, David was like a celebrity that never was. Like, he was called into kingly duties. The Psalms, the book of Psalms, right? They're written by David. Like, he loved to sing so much, and he would gather people and teach them. So 4,000 orchestra. We're not stepping down on this. We have to be as glorious and as grand as it takes. Yes, he divided them into groups, clan by clan. And then the Levites, 20 years and older. And then, of course, the Levites. The Levites were not really. Every time they were doing stuff, the Levites were separate. And every time the Levites were doing stuff, they were different from what the other Israelites were doing. Your earrings are so on you. Ooh, thank you, Mara. Thank you. So God has given you rest, and the Levites no longer have to carry the tabernacle, and furniture required for worship. You guys are, by the time we build this house, the Levites are not going to be so busy anymore carrying the, because whenever they needed to carry, there was a lot of article that needed to be carried. That's why the entire tribe, which was their divine assignment to carry out the task of carrying everything. So now the Levites, once a temple had been built, and the Levites will not be so busy, they were assigned to assist the priests moving forward, to maintain the courtyards, closets, that's outfits, furniture, utensils for worship, provide bread for the table, flour for meal offerings. What did I write here? Was that flour for meal offerings, and unleavened bread, wafer. So the Levites, their duties transformed into ensuring that all the other additional things that were needed for worship were provided by them. What this tells me is that, number one, it's okay. There's, so if you are in the Twitter space, okay, so X, in the Twitter space in Nigeria, there's these conversations about Nepo babies. So I like to be abreast of what's going on, Nepo babies, and lots of criticisms are coming for people who are perceived as having very extended privileges. I'm sure in your country you have those types of babies too, who step into big daddy shoes very early, and their launch pads are way higher than the average person. Nepo babies. Solomon was a Nepo baby. Yeah. And David didn't even hold back. He was like, I want Solomon to succeed so badly. I'm going to leave everything that he needs and way more. And then I'm going to ensure that I use my power as king to get everyone. I set out the structure way before I go, so that Solomon can be successful. There's nothing wrong with doing that for your child. Nothing wrong with doing that for your child. And so one of the things I wanted to leave here was that the Levites had been carrying the articles of worship and the ark and all of those things. Okay, so the priests used to carry the ark, but all of those things in support of worship. And you know that the entire tribe of Israel they were supposed to be one big priesthood, right? And some David says something here. You know that you no longer have to carry the articles of worship because you're going to build a house for the Lord. That tells me that God is progressive. I hear some arguments about why should women be given an opportunity to preach? Why are men and women should keep quiet and stay home? Women must tie their hair. In my country, there's always this drama. And if you look around many evangelical settings, they still have all this nitpicking around women and all. But you see, God is quite progressive, and I'm really glad that I've exposed one other progressive. The first one was the Zelophehad girls that challenged the inheritance laws in Israel. And now this is David saying, you don't have to do this anymore, so we're going to find new work for you. God is a progressive God. Whenever you are in worship I feel strongly that if you're following a worship or a tradition that refuses to evolve, we used to worship at the back end of the desert, we must stay there. Not for me. I feel like people who say we used to wear rags when we used to worship, we must remain wearing rags. Not of God. God is progressive. He's the author of progress. So if you are worshiping and then someone says, we found a new technology and there's a way to now add piano to the singing that you sing. Look at David, 4,000 orchestra. Nothing like that had been done in Israel. And God was pleased with it. So that says God is a progressive. Oh gosh, God is progressive. Okay, but I think I've made my point here, and I'd love to hear your comments on this. Very quickly now, I'm going to rush to the Romans and just quickly say, so Paul is a lawyer. if there's any one of you here who is an attorney or a lawyer, you must probably feel Paul. So you go read it for yourself because he's so verbose. I try to summarize what was written here. So Paul continues to stress that the Jews stress to the Jews. All of these arguments in the book of Romans was Paul trying to persuade the Jews that, look, you guys are not that all. You guys are not all that. There's a lot of sin in you. And the Gentiles, the Greeks, the people you criticize as not being part of God's plan, God has brought them in. And they're just as sinful as you. Like, you are not better than they are, and they are not better than you are. So look, let's settle this matter and agree that we are all on the same path and we need God just as equally. So that's what basically this book of Romans is. But let me just quickly take a minute or two to break down what Paul said. Paul continues to stress to the Jews that because they had the law, didn't give them a better break. You see, everyone starts out as a sinner and no one is really able to live right. So these are my summary, these are my notes. So Jews and Gentiles alike, all of us, all have taken the wrong turn. We have become unprofitable. Our mouths curse with bitterness. Our feet are swift to commit crime and evil. Shed blood. No one knows peace. No one fears God. All of us are guilty. All of us. So whenever we have people calling out people to talk about, consider talking, about God. It's not a person who really is reading the Bible for what it should be, from my opinion. They should not be judging people, because we are all guilty completely. None of us without sin. That's what Paul is stressing here. So if I call you and say, join me and read the Bible, it's because I don't want to be alone reading the Bible. I feel like I've seen something great. We should do this together. That's the whole idea. Okay? Anyway, scripture isn't about others. It's about God's relationship with us. It's about God talking to us. So whenever we read the scripture, it's not about, oh, I know someone who, yes, that bad husband who has been maltreating his wife. I know now, you should come and read it here. Or that my cousin, or that my friend who betrayed me, this is what for her. No, whenever we read the scriptures, we should take it that God is speaking to us. It's not about other people. Our actions in the flesh will not justify us, but even though we have had all of this bad score, in our time, God has changed the rules and he brought Jesus, made Jesus the ultimate sacrifice. He brought Jesus and made him the ultimate sacrifice. So I wrote here, in our time, something new was added. Talk about that progressive God again. Something new was added. Righteousness apart from the law. So now it's not just that we keep the law, but that there's a whole theory now around righteousness. And how do you get righteous? Just by believing, not by what you do, okay? Just by believing, not by what you do. So let me give an example. There's an egg sitting in a womb. The sperms are, I don't know why I chose that weird example, but the sperms are coming up the track and they're trying to fertilize the egg. The moment the first sperm is able to lodge his head in and lock in, the egg develops an outer film, and that outer film shields all the other sperms from getting to her. One lucky man has gotten in, and now they're ready to settle down and make a beautiful baby. That's how this thing of belief is, that you were porous and open to everything. The day you begin to believe, that film of righteousness, suddenly you are now righteous before God. Ooh. Anyway, so he says righteousness apart from the law has been added. Jesus sets everything right for everyone who believes in him, and every one of us has sinned, like I stated earlier. So God sacrificed Jesus on the main altar, on an altar. Yes, that whole crucifixion drama was an altar. Yeah, God sacrificed Jesus on the altar to clear the world of sin, and he did it publicly. So there's a story down generations that this thing happened. He didn't do it in some secret place where no one really knows. He made it public. He made it public, clearing the sin he had patiently endured for many generations. So God had been putting up with a lot across the world. So Jesus came on board to give God like a sigh of relief. Finally, we have made things right. So all they need now is to believe in this guy, and I will see them as righteous, and then we can start our relationship once again from there. Such a rich explanation. So God is the God of both of us. So what happens to the Jewish insider claims? What are all these laws for now if people can just believe in Jesus and it clears everything? You know what Paul says? cancelled. Cancelled. I know. No wonder if you followed me through the book of Acts, no wonder Paul couldn't get a break. He had to be protected by armed men, by the governor, by Caesar. Like it got to the point. Like this is offensive to the Jews. What are you saying to us? Anyway, Paul says this cancels all the Jewish insider claims. Whatever you think you know, cancelled. Cancelled. He is God of both the Jews and the Gentiles, giving those of us who were not originally Jews a right to the same pot of soup that you all are getting. Anyway, let's shift our focus to what God does, away from what we do. Let's focus on what God has done for us. Once we focus on what God has done for us, the I believe and the change in attitude will come. Okay? Won't that cancel our carefully kept rules over several years? Paul says, not at all. We're just simply rearranging things back in the right order. You focus on God, what He has done for you, then you, because of your love for Him, you begin to live according to what He has prescribed. Not think that you can earn God's love by living according to the rules. When you accept the love of God, you usually are not critical of others and not judgmental. You are happy to share the good news of God with them. I have really, really enjoyed today. Putting it just simply puts life back in its proper place. I really enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you for all the great comments I got today. I would love to hear your feedback. Please subscribe to my channel if you are yet to do so. Share it with people you think may need it, and I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you.